Users will use every tool in the book to claim that you are a problem parent, that you are an abusive parent. Illness is just one of the ways. So let's take a look at what that might look like. So I'm going to look at this from two perspectives. So the first one is the children have got illnesses, and your ex refuses to recognize them, refuses to acknowledge them, doesn't give them medication, won't support assessments. And if they do, then they then have to take over them and make it look like they are the hero of it, or be completely oppositional to it. So essentially, professionals start to doubt themselves or just step away because your ex is making it so difficult for them. And obviously, all of this technically could be classed as medical neglect, but without that proper diagnosis, and particularly you do kind of need them involved to give different perspectives, then you're going to struggle to get that diagnosis. And if you do get a diagnosis, this is what the flip side of that is. They can then use that against you. They can make allegations of you having fabricated illness syndrome by you making unilateral decisions without them. And so weaponizing a child's health and their well-being is just one of the many ways that abusers will use it to turn you into the bad parent, the abusive parent, um, the harmful parent, because you are falsely trying to get this child diagnosed, or treating them, and they are basically saying that you have fabricated illness syndrome, used to be Munchausen's by proxy, and that you are harming the child through that. The other side of that is when an abuser uses illness to stop you from having contact with the child, using illness as that consistent reason. You can't look after them, I'm the only person that can do this for them. They manipulate an illness. So the main illnesses that I see that this being utilized with are kind of like the neurodivergent, so looking at ADHD, autism. Those are really used as weapons to either keep you out of the child's life and play this doting parent, the hero parent, the only one that can deal with them, or I don't see any problems, there's nothing going on with me, they're just making this up. And so they will weaponize either end of that stick to make sure that you are painted as a bad guy, and all the while your child's needs are being neglected. And so if you're in a case like this, one, it is going to be really difficult. Your best thing is to try, obviously, and get as many witnesses as possible to the behaviour and professional opinions, being aware that your ex will try and block these at every attempt or take over. And just like I say, being ahead of it, being ahead of the curve, knowing what their game plan is going to be, means you can try and outmaneuver them with it. Again, not easy, but that the best way you can do that is keeping a log of everything. So if it's anything neurodiverse, behavioural, log it all. Date, times of incidences. Get school or nursery to do the same thing. Log those patterns, because again, as with the behavior of a narcissistic person, it's about the patterns. It's the patterns that prove the diagnosis, because you're looking at, I use the ABC chart, so you're looking at what happened before, what was the behavior, and what happened afterwards. So we're trying to paint this picture of what's going on in that child's life. What is leading to this? Are there particular patterns around times of day, around meals, around instructions, around activities? That's what you're trying to find as you're kind of doing your own almost diagnostic tests around these things. Keep an ABC chart. This is going to be really useful when you go to see either, you might get an educational psychologist, or if school get involved, or you could go through the GP and then they could refer you through that. Those sort of records are going to be really helpful. Now, obviously, if your ex starts saying, well, I don't see any of that, this is about parenting, that's fine. If you can prove that the patterns happen in these particular ones, you can say, okay, write down what you do. How are you reacting to these incidents? So you can bring all that into the fray. Because then the argument is, if they're saying, I never see it, never happens while they're with me, once you've been able to demonstrate that this is a pattern, this is something that is going on, where you're not diagnosing them, what you're saying is these behaviours are happening, this is what's happening around the child at that particular moment in time, you're asking a professional to look at that. If the other parent isn't seeing any of that, it could be that the child is masking, it could be that the other parent is refusing to admit it, it could well be that the child does act out, but the other parent just is so, fear provoking that it shuts down really quickly. There's lots of different reasons why the other parent would say, not seeing it, not happening. And, so, and you don't know the answer to that. You don't know the why that they are not seeing it, even if they are seeing it. Your job is not to sort of raise those. Your job is to show the pattern is happening. Again, if school can do the same, if they can show these patterns, this is when it's happening. Because with things like autism and ADHD, they tend to happen across a range of different situations. So being able to map it across as many as possible, when they come up, just map it, just like I say, an ABC chart or something similar. There's also a star chart that you can use as well. All very similar. They're all just looking at what is happening around the child while this incident, before it goes on, after, it's to give the professionals involved as much information as possible. If you're on the other side of that, which is you're not being involved in any of these decisions, and if you're not seeing your child, then obviously you're not seeing this behaviour, and if it's being used against you that you don't know, how do you know how to manage? Well, there's some truth in that, because if that child does have this problem and you're not seeing them, you're not going to know because you're not doing it. Put yourself on courses. If it's, for example, autism, there's the autism charity. They do loads of training for parents. Go and put yourself on that. Do whatever you need to do so that you can go back and say, look, I might not know it for this child because I haven't seen them. I've not been getting access, but I've done this. I've done this course. I've done this course, I've read this book. These are things I've been doing to really educate me to know what is going on in my child's life. However, if you believe that actually there isn't anything going on for this child, I am concerned that it's being made up. Again, it comes back to patterns. So if you're not seeing your child, but you had a previous relationship with them, now obviously you're not going to be able to do an ABC chart with this, but what you are going to be able to do is look back and show how these behaviours weren't present when you were involved in the child's life, and proving that this is part of a bigger pattern. Now, if your ex has got professional involved and they all believe it, my advice is, and if you do this autism courses, or I'm sure ADHD courses, or whatever illness it is, this could cover any illness. These are the ones that spring to my mind. The things that they teach you around parenting these children, they're not going to harm a normal neurologically child. They're not harmful to non-neurodivergent children. So they're things like clear boundaries, there are things like clear instructions. So there's lots of things that you can take and implement them anyway. So even if you don't believe with the diagnosis, you could say, look, I've researched this condition, even though I'm not 100% sure that this exists, I'm willing to adopt the parenting strategies because these are the ones that I think would really benefit the family. Because also, your child will be traumatized because of this whole situation. And there are links between neurodiversity and trauma. It's kind of like a Venn diagram. There's a lot of crossover. And so adapting some of those parenting practices could be helpful anyway. It's going to be trial and error. So I guess what I'm saying is, if you're not seeing your child and you think it is Munchausen's by proxy or fabricated illness syndrome as it is now, don't label it as that. Again, show a pattern whereby contact has been blocked for this many for this reason. You know, it's always been illness, it's happened this many times. Get access to GP records if you can. As you go through family court, you can ask the court to get those medical records, so that if they're just using it as an excuse and they're not actually taking them to the doctors, then you can evidence that actually it's just an excuse. They're just using this illness to stop contact. If they are taking them to the doctors, but actually the doctor's saying can't see anything, that's evidence for you that something's not quite right. If there's ongoing investigations, I would go along with them, but again, ask to be part of them. You don't necessarily have to go along to the same appointments, ask for separate appointments. It's about keeping you involved in that process so that it can't be used as an excuse. So this is a very complicated topic, and I have covered fabricated illness before. I will link to that video in the description, but I wanted to cover this because it's coming up more and more often again in practice. So do drop your comments below. Are you experiencing this? What have been your biggest struggles? What resources would help? And I will do my best to offer you whatever guidance I think possible. But like I say, these are not easy situations, but just being aware of the machinations of it and developing a strategy around that can be really helpful for you, so that even if it is happening, you have a plan. You know how to tackle this within the family court, with your ex, with medical professions as well. So do like, comment and share the video. If you are struggling through family court, take a look at getcourtroad.co.uk. If you are struggling mentally with a lot of this, which is perfectly understandable and natural, and want to get ahead of the trauma that is being constantly triggered by this, have a look at the nurturingcoach.co.uk website. This is where we offer specialist therapy. Take care, everyone. Thank you.